Hello, everyone. My name is Christine, and I'm the host here at the Hungarian Heritage podcast, the show where we connect your modern life to your Hungarian heritage by building bridges and connecting the circles of Hungarians around us. This podcast is a place where everyone is welcome, where you don't even need to be Hungarian or speak Hungarian to join in on the fun. Each week, we will talk about all the things that we love about Hungary and Hungarian people. So, if you're looking to make that first connection to your Hungarian heritage, or you're looking to dive deeper, then this is the place to be. Thanks for joining us today. In this episode of the Hungarian Heritage Podcast, we're talking about sports, specifically the sport of lacrosse. My guest in this episode is George Rohonczcy, and we discuss the Hungarian men's national lacrosse team. We talk about how lacrosse came to be a national sport in Hungary, the thrills of their victories both on and off of the field, how to try out and qualify for the national team, and the team's long and short-term goals. If you're unsure what the sport of lacrosse is all about, don't worry, because we talk about it here too, in addition to sharing how you can come out and support the team. And of course, you know, I will be asking George all about his Hungarian heritage too. I would like to welcome George Rohonczcy to the podcast today, and we will be talking about the Hungarian men's national lacrosse team, its history, its team members, both in Hungary and around the world, and what it takes to try out for the team and all the ins and outs of that. So, of course, we'll also talk to George about his Hungarian heritage. So, welcome, George. Thanks so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
Before we dive into talking about lacrosse, tell us a little bit about your heritage, your connections, did you have growing up traditions, food traditions, or did that happen for you later as an adult? Fill us in.
So we have little bits and pieces sprinkled in here and there. My dad was an only child. He came from Hungary back in 1957 with his parents. Both of his parents passed away before I was born. So there really wasn't a whole lot of Hungarian family around.
Okay.
Every now and then we'd have like the plum dumplings or, we'd have Betzel and chicken paprikash and things like that. But my dad never really spoke Hungarian. So my sister and I never grew up hearing it or learning it. It was very much not something that was in our everyday life. And I think as I got older and I kind of realized, I always thought it was very cool when people could speak multiple languages. I thought it's an amazing skill set. I just realized how little about my dad's past and like my family history I really knew.
Right.
Because unless you asked, my dad wasn't really sharing it. So it was definitely a little later on in life where I got much more interested in him growing up, what he was doing, where he came from, things like that.
Yeah. And I think also too, which I've mentioned in other episodes, it depends on when your family members come to the United States or if they, immigrate somewhere else, because, when he came over in 1957, that was kind of like a tumultuous time, as everyone listening probably knows. So the Americanization push for themselves and their children going forward was a thing. So that happened for you as well. You talked about it, but you didn't really dive into all of the nitty gritty questions. Yeah. Now, people are really promoting in a good way, learning the language. If you know the language, teaching your children. So similar experiences, I think, for a lot of people that had people that came over, family members, like your dad. So pretty cool. Well, at least you got to eat some Hungarian food. Did he cook food?
No.
Okay.
No. He cooked the blintzes.
Okay.
When we would have blintzes, that was my dad's thing.
Okay.
But otherwise, my mom definitely did whatever she could try to make it as Hungarian as possible.
Oh, that's cool.
And it was always a good time. Yeah.
Yeah. I always blank on the names of things, but I think the blintzes are called gumboats. So that's cool. So you did have some connection. Lacrosse, for those who don't know, and there are people who know lacrosse, and then some people are like, what's lacrosse? And I always say it's hockey, but in the air, essentially. You know what I mean?
Exactly, yeah.
So, it has a rich history here in North America, in the US, obviously, in Canada because it's Native American or like the first people, they invented the sport. So it's been around longer, not necessarily that we've had professional sports teams, but just like the availability of the idea of lacrosse. So tell us a little bit about what you know about how lacrosse became a thing in Hungary. How did the guys say, hey, maybe we should play this? Like, tell us a little bit about that origin.
So it's actually kind of a funny story. My understanding is that one night, late at night, like when you're randomly flipping through the stations on TV at 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the morning, you see this random show pop up and you're like, oh, I'll watch a little bit of it.
Yeah.
That's what happened in Hungary.
Wow.
A couple of the guys were hanging out after they went out to a bar and they were back at the house watching TV, and box lacrosse was on TV.
Wow.
And they were like, wow, this is crazy. What is this? They want to learn more about it.
Right.
So they just watched it a couple of times. And then there's this organization, the European Lacrosse Federation.
Mm-hmm.
They reached out to that group. They oversee all of lacrosse, organized lacrosse in Europe. They reached out to the ELF and said, hey, we saw this game on TV. We'd be interested in learning about it. And so in 2008, the European Lacrosse Federation sent some people over to kind of teach the game of lacrosse. And that's really where it all kind of started.
Wow. So it's still like a younger sport as far as growing the game over in Hungary. So for those who don't know, there are two different types of lacrosse that people play. It's box and field. Can you give us a little bit of a rundown of the differences and similarities of that?
Sure. So you're using the same stick for box and field. It's about 3-foot stick, but the difference is in field, it's less physical. I'll say box lacrosse is, when you think of hockey,
yeah,
you are thinking box lacrosse. It is in a hockey rink on turf. A lot of hitting, a lot of just pushing people around, slamming people into the boards. Field lacrosse is a little more, we'll call it, I won't say finesse, because the amount of skill that you need to have to play both box and field are immense. But it's not as physical. You're not allowed to hit as hard. There's no fighting is really allowed. But in box, it's a much more physical event than field.
Well, the proximity from teammate to teammate and like the opposing team allows for a little more physicality, I guess. And the rules, I imagine, also allow for more hitting in box and more contact.
Right? Yeah. So box really established itself as the summertime sport in Canada to fill the hockey rinks when there wasn't hockey.
Nice.
So everyone had the hockey gear. Everyone was used to the hockey rules. And that's why they're very similar. The physicality of it, the level of intensity.
Right.
The field game is much more what they kind of call the American version of the game, where it's a much larger field, more guys on the field at the same time. And you play in a different way. We dodge, we keep the stick in one hand in box, but we use both hands in field.
Right.
So there are very small things that differentiate the game. But yeah, so field is where they got started in Hungary because it was easier to find an open field than an unused hockey rink.
That makes sense because hockey's pretty big over in Hungary. So that makes a lot of sense. So 2008, there's this birth of lacrosse over in Hungary. So now many people don't know that there are heritage teams in the US. So that's kind of like where you come in. How did you get connected with this lacrosse heritage team? Like, were you the person that initiated it on this end? I'm going to let you tell us about it. So tell us how that happened.
Sure. So about 2009, after I graduated college, I was just looking to still play. And I played on a couple of club teams. We would travel all over the US playing different tournaments. And I played with a couple of guys who played on the Ireland national team. I was like, wow, that's really cool. How'd you guys do that? What's that about?
Right.
Because my mom's side is Irish.
Okay.
And so then I started hearing about, you have to be an Irish citizen, or, they'll take 4 people who aren't citizens but have the heritage. And I was like, all right, well, I'm an Irish lacrosse player in New York. I can guarantee I'm not one of the top 4 U.S. lacrosse players who are Irish heritage. That's not going to work.
Yeah. And for those who don't know, there's a huge Irish population on the East Coast, especially in the New York area.
Yeah. So I knew that was kind of my first dead end.
Right.
And I was like, oh, well, my dad's from Hungary. Like, I wonder if Hungary has a team. So did a little researching and found that there was one club team in Budapest. So I emailed them. I said, hey guys, do you have a national team? And they're like, no, we just kind of started. I was like, all right, let's build one. Like, why not?
Right.
So like, okay, why not? Okay.
Wow.
And then, so we just started going through the process of talking with World Lacrosse, getting approved by the European Lacrosse Federation as a member, then World Lacrosse in 2011. And then that was kind of where our national team started. And, we knew because it is a newer sport in the country,
right.
We needed extra bodies who have played the game, who could come over, who could help teach the game, who could give those little nuances that if you're just watching the game on TV, you don't really pick up.
Right.
Really, that in-game experience is so valuable. And so that's where we started looking at our heritage teams and bringing guys from Canada, the US. We have guys from Australia who play. So those are members of our heritage team who apply to, try out for the national team, who come visit in Hungary when we have our different events like the New Year's Cup.
Right.
And they spend a lot of time really trying to teach the guys, correct shooting mechanics,
right,
goalie work, working with the kids who come and want to see the game for the first time. So it's really been a great way to bring a lot of people who otherwise would not have had the opportunity to visit Hungary and get in touch with their roots, a way to bring them together.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think a lot of people realize that there are heritage teams for many countries in the US that play. One of the big ones is on usually Memorial Day weekend. There's a big heritage tournament. I'm not sure if that's happening this year.
I was going to say this specific year is a very weird year for us as we're trying to get ready for our different championships, but it may be an event we take part in. It's usually something we do attend, and we'll play against the Israeli heritage team, the Ireland, Greece, Lithuania. There are quite a few teams that come out, and it's always a good time.
So now, because there are heritage teams outside of Hungary, in the US, Canada, Australia, you mentioned, which also has a big Hungarian population there, how does a player make the team? How do they try out? Like, there's definitely requirements for lacrosse skills, but there are definitely requirements otherwise as well. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So basically, we will post every now and then when we have an event and we say, we're on Instagram at Hungary Lacrosse, and we'll post something. I just posted something recently. We're going to Prague at the end of August. And we say, hey, listen, if you play lacrosse, if you're Hungarian, shoot me an email. Let's get in touch. Because even if you don't necessarily want to try out for the national team, we do like to kind of have other events that are more fun events that we go to. And we'll do tournaments that are really just to get guys to meet each other and kind of build our Hungarian lacrosse community a bit. So we, as long as if you want to play on the team, we just like that you're Hungarian. It could be your great grandmother, 7 times removed. If you have that heritage, you're always welcome to play. As far as tryouts for the national team, there are some more stringent requirements. So you either need to be a Hungarian passport holder, have a parent or a grandparent who was a passport holder, have lived in the country for 3 years, or be married to a citizen. So the interesting part is the World Lacrosse and European Lacrosse Federation have said your roster can be 23 guys. Of that 23, 19 have to be Hungarian passport holders. So you really only have 4 spots for someone who isn't a passport holder, but who has that heritage.
Right. So like there are definitely requirements to be on the national team to play at national, international events, but like other more fun little tournaments, whether it be, I know in Hungary, they have the New Year's Cup. And over here, you guys do like some box tournaments and including the Heritage tournament. You don't necessarily have to be Hungarian, well, not be Hungarian, but I know you guys have had some friends. Sometimes all the teams do that and just come play.
Absolutely.
Yeah, which is good.
Yeah.
So at least to get a good feel of what the team is about, contacting you and showing up, you could always go from there, regardless of how Hungarian you are.
Right.
And, I mean, it is a big commitment to go through the process of getting your passport for those who might be thinking that they're interested. I mean, I know people in the US think that it takes a long time to get a passport. Here, it's like 10 times as long. Like you have to count on it being at least a year.
At least, yeah.
At least a year. And that's if, you know, you have all of your ducks in a row and you have all of your paperwork, which,
right.
You know, it takes a lot actually to get a passport. Like you have to have all the proper documents of who you are, what's your heritage. And then there's also some year requirements too, regarding like the changing of the borders 100 years ago. So there's a lot going on when it comes to that, but definitely worth the effort in the long run if someone's interested in getting their passport, which is a topic for another episode, I'm sure. Now, is there a specific percentage somebody has to be Hungarian, or really you're just like banking on like a passport holder? Because I think that's maybe where the requirements are for percentage. But is that a thing as far as joining the team?
So for the national team, you can be a Hungarian citizen and have 0 Hungarian heritage.
Right.
And then they'll accept that because you're a passport holder.
Okay.
So they do play some weird, funky games with it. But I mean, again, as far as the heritage teams or events that we do that are not world championships or European championships,
right?
If you're Hungarian, awesome. You know, if you just like the idea of coming to visit Hungary and helping grow the game there, and you're not Hungarian, you're Hungarian for the time you're there.
Yeah, exactly. That's awesome. Very, very welcoming point of view to have. I like that.
Yeah.
Now, the Hungarian team, as you said, kind of was birthed in 2008. But even though it's still like, I guess, you know, a baby at this point, you've played in some pretty big tournaments over the past year. So tell us a little bit about some of the accomplishments that the team has encountered over these past few years.
Yeah. So I guess I'm very impatient. So when it comes to that, I look at it as we've been an established organization since 2008. Why aren't we bigger? But, you know, it was funny because thinking back on it, I do realize, you know, in 2016, it was our first European championships that we participated in, but we also hosted it.
Right.
And that was a first.
Yeah.
So no team had ever hosted the first time they participated.
Yeah. That's a big endeavor.
It was, absolutely. And it was a logistical nightmare, you know, but
right.
We got through it and it was great. And, you know, I think that was our first big accomplishment of saying, hey, we're here.
Right.
You know, I've always said to our guys, the second we do a European championship or the second we do a world championship, we will go back every year. We will not be that team that shows up and then we can't get it
fizzles
done.
out. Yeah, absolutely.
So that was pretty amazing. Kind of after all was said and done, getting back on the plane in 2016, being like, wow, like we really did it.
Wow.
That was cool. And then 2018, we participated in our first world championships.
Wow. That's amazing.
And that was fun. We've built relationships with guys in the other European national teams. So, you know, a European championship, you're seeing guys you've seen before. At the Worlds, seeing, you know, Team New Zealand walk in or, you know, again, I was lucky enough to have seen a lot of the Team USA guys in person before, whether it was college or pro games.
Right.
But seeing some of our national team guys from Hungary who had never seen these guys in person, you know, seeing these superstars in front of them, it was a cool experience.
Yeah, that must have been pretty special because it really does bring all of these people together, obviously. But, you know, you see sometimes like people that you admire that maybe you've only seen on TV, which was pretty great. I guess this question leads into, because you've already told us a great memorable moment, but are there any standout moments, whether it was on the field or, you know, with the team or just because you've been many places with the team as well. Like you've traveled to different countries to play in these championships and tournaments. What stands out for you?
So I would say the 2016 Euros, our first win against Italy,
Wow.
was something, honestly, like it just gives you goosebumps when you think about it, because it was under the lights. You're hosting this championship tournament. You win your first European championship game.
Yeah.
You have the fans, chanting for you, and you just kind of you get that realization that this isn't just another club team you're playing for. This isn't just a lacrosse game.
Right.
People who may not really know much about lacrosse, but knew that this tournament was happening and Hungary was being represented and they're out cheering for you. Like it was a very special moment.
Yeah. And you won that in the home country, which was, wow. Like I have chills just thinking about that. That must have been so exciting. That's a big first memorable moment. That's great. Now you guys have traveled other places too. Any other standout fun things with the team or things that you've done, like I said, on the field or off the fields?
If I'm going to be somewhat selfish about this, I will say the New Year's Cup is one of the most fun tournaments that I have played in.
Right.
Budapest on New Year's Day, we went, it must have been 5 or 6 years ago now. My wife and I went, and the tournament was actually New Year's weekend. So we're playing in the game. We go out, we get some chimney cakes, we get back to the hotel. And all of a sudden we're looking outside and they're shooting fireworks off like at our hotel window.
Yeah.
It was crazy. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And, the national team allows you to go places and see these amazing locations that you may not otherwise have the ability to do. Like going to Israel, just the amount of things that we saw in the one-day tour that we took was unreal.
Yeah. Like you said, that's something that people might not necessarily get to see ever in their lives.
Right.
And I'm sure they took you around to pretty amazing places on that tour.
Yeah. It was amazing. And I'm really excited. We have Prague coming up in August, and that is one of my favorite tournaments ever.
So has the Hungarian team played in that tournament before, or have you specifically played with a different team?
So I've played in a separate tournament, the Alex Hrabetsky Memorial Tournament in Prague, and that is in April. And it's a tournament, a fundraiser for a player who was killed. I guess it was 20. We're almost at like a 20-year mark there.
Wow.
And they it's an amazing atmosphere. The whole city comes out. It's packed.
Right.
The tournament we're playing is in the Frank Menschner Cup. Frank was a pivotal person in box lacrosse in Philadelphia, in the U.S., and he had always been going to the Alex Hrabetsky Memorial. Frank unfortunately passed away on his way back from the Alex Hrabetsky Memorial Cup.
Oh, wow.
So they started this tournament in his honor. And it was something that, I saw we had an opportunity to play in. They had an opening, and we're getting ready for the box world championships in 2024.
Wow.
So I kind of said, this is a perfect time to get the national team involved, get our guys out to play together, see a beautiful city in Prague, and play in a great tournament.
Wow. Yeah. Prague is beautiful. I've been there before, and it's just, there's so much to see and do. I'm sure that the guys will love going. You've been, so I'm sure the people that haven't been there will really enjoy it. Now, the box team is a little bit on the newer side, or like it's a newer adventure for the Hungarian team. Tell us a little bit about how they got interested in box as well, because I know although they were influenced originally by box, I don't think the teams over in Hungary were originally playing box. Is that correct? Right.
Yeah. So we've never had a box team in Hungary. It, like you said, it started watching box and kind of morphed into field lacrosse. And I don't know if it wasn't the ability or the resources to play the game. It takes more equipment to play box lacrosse.
Yeah.
The facilities are they're much more specific. If you don't have boards and glass, you don't have a box lacrosse rink.
Right.
As opposed to field where you can just play wherever as long as you have 2 goals.
Right.
So, yeah, I'll say, unfortunately, since we didn't qualify for the 2023 Field World Lacrosse Championships, we now have all of 2023 to prep for the box championships. And basically we told our guys, like, listen, you may have been a great part of our team for the field lacrosse team. We need you to start playing box.
Okay.
We need you. If you want
Right.
to play on the box team, you have to get that experience. So right now, actually, we just found out we have probably 7 to 10 of our guys going to play in different box tournaments and different box leagues across Europe.
That's great.
Just to get that experience, right?
Yeah.
And we are really hoping that, I've always said if we start the national team, by the time, my 6-year-old son gets up to that point of being able to play,
Absolutely.
I want him to have to fight for Hungarian spots. I don't want this to be an American team supplemented with Hungarians. We're growing this to make it a Hungarian team where if we need a left-handed attackman, we can pull one from the States.
Right,
Or if
exactly.
we need an extra goalie, we can pull one from the States or Canada or wherever.
Right.
We are really trying to give these guys the experience and the understanding so that they can take this program and run with it. If they came to me in 5 years and said, "Hey, George, thanks for everything, but we're good. We don't need you anymore," I'd walk away and say, "Perfect. Like, I did my job." That's great.
Right. I'm sure in your head, there's like a plan, a vision for like the next 5 years, 10 years. But what is it that you would like to see in the next 5 years happen as far as growing the game, team members, all of the above? What's your vision?
It's got to be kids.
Okay.
It's got to be like our focus right now is driving, getting the youth involved. And we don't need U12, U8, U6 teams.
Right.
We just want kids to, if they see a lacrosse stick, they know what it is.
Right.
Like, oh, I played with that in gym class.
Right.
Or, oh, I saw my older brother or my cousin playing with that.
Right.
We want lacrosse to be a known sport. And so our goal for the next probably 2 to 3 years at this point is really finding a bunch of schools that we can work with and partner with and say, here are 30 lacrosse sticks. We'll be back in a month to pick them up.
Okay.
If you want us to teach your kids how to use them, awesome. Yeah. If you just want to play with them and kind of figure out how to use them, great. Whatever you want, we're here to help you with. At the end of that month, come pick them up. Do you like it? Yeah, great. We can come back in another month and drop them off again.
Right.
And just kind of getting that exposure to the kids so that by the time, I mean, listen, I know lacrosse is not hockey. It's not swimming. It's not one of those big sports that people expect to go pro in.
Right.
But if at 12 or 13, all of a sudden your hopes of playing professional hockey get dashed and you're wondering what to do. Well, oh yeah, that sport that I played in school is a lot like hockey.
Right.
Huh. Okay, I can still represent Hungary at the highest level playing a different sport that I never thought about before. Not starting from square one.
Well, I believe that you could probably gain a lot of new members from the hockey programs because isn't lacrosse a different season than hockey?
Yeah.
For the most part.
And that's really we're trying to now get out, and it's kind of a two-pronged approach where we're looking at the youth and trying to at least just have them familiar with the game.
Right.
But then also, kind of going out and poaching some of those players who like, hey man, let's have a realistic conversation. Do you think you're going pro? Right. Maybe you should try this out.
Right.
It will give you other experiences. You can travel, you can do some fun stuff.
Right. Yeah, I feel like that would be a great way to do that. Or even have like summer camps set up for them to come try it out, have the guys, run like a week program here, a week program there, just to get the kids involved and say, hey, this is pretty cool.
Yeah. And so one of our big things, I'll say our like 5 to 10 year plan, is there are a lot of sport groups.
Right.
So, in the US, you have your club teams, but they're specific to lacrosse or to basketball or to hockey. In Hungary, there are these sport clubs, but they have clubs. The one club has everything. The club has basketball or hockey or football or whatnot. What we want to do is we want to align ourselves with these clubs to say, hey, you have a hockey rink. It's not ice year round.
Right.
Now we have a box program. Let's have a box program, join your club program. Right. And then we have something for the kids to try if they don't have anything during that season.
Right. That's
keeps
a great
them
idea.
active, keeps them involved.
Right. And I think it only takes like one club to get it started, to start that like snowball effect, of
Absolutely
gaining interest. So that's a great plan. I think that would really start to grow the game a lot more. Not that the game isn't grown in Hungary, but to really pick up a momentum of, what your vision is like. So if people want to support the team, where can they come see you guys?
Sure. So stateside, we're actually, again, since we're focusing on this box lacrosse movement now, we're definitely going to try and do at least one more box tournament this year. Okay. In the States. We actually just wrapped one up. It's called Lacrosse, Lacrosse North America Invitational. That was in Utica in October. So that's something that we've been involved in for the last couple of years and we'll probably stay involved in. Again, we do usually Memorial Day weekend. We have a field lacrosse event. And, we're posting things, honestly, we've gotten to a point where these heritage teams know each other enough where I just got a call from Team Mexico saying, hey, in June, we might have a box tryout camp. Do you guys want to do it with us? And we can have joint tryouts. We can have scrimmages. So things are always popping up. And so honestly, the best way to kind of keep track of it all is on Instagram. We'll always post it at Hungary Lacrosse. That's kind of where we kind of keep our up-to-date list of things that are going on. Okay. Our website, hungarylacrosse.com, hungarylacrosse.org. We actually have a donation page there if people want to help donate. I tell you, what I have found out in running this team is resources are far and few between when it comes to operating a large organization like this. Right.
Well, I'll make sure I'll put all of that in the show notes so that people can find you, come support the team, and also donate, which would be great. More than welcome, I'm sure, because you always need funds when you're running a large organization. What would be one last thing that you'd like to tell everybody about the men's national lacrosse team in Hungary as far as, coming to join the team? Because what would someone have to look forward to?
It's just such a good time. Honestly, if you've played on a lacrosse team before, you can always usually pick one or two of the guys on the team that are like, oh, that's a really good guy.
Right.
I walk away every time. My wife questions me why I do it all the time because there's a lot to handle, a lot of logistics, a lot of, details, a lot of making sure people know where they're going back and forth. But every time I'm like, that's it, I'm done, I'm walking away. We end up having a tournament or an event. And I'm like, no, there is not one bad guy in this team that I need to keep doing it. Like I need to do it just so I can hang out with these guys more.
Right. Yeah. Those are like lifelong friendships that you're making.
It is. Yeah. It really is.
That's amazing. And, you do, like you said, you have young kids. So you're also building it for their future, as I imagine they are going to be playing lacrosse soon as well.
I hope. I hope we're going strong enough where my son can look at, or my sons, and honestly, my daughter too, it's something, we don't want it to just be a men's national team.
Right.
We do want the women to have their own national team and be just as strong and successful as we've been. So I do hope that this isn't just a my generation thing. It's for everyone.
Yeah. I think that lacrosse is, pretty big here in North America. So I can't imagine that with spreading the word about this lacrosse team for Hungary, I think people will keep being attracted to this opportunity. And I don't think it's going to be just a you generation thing. I think it's going to grow just like you want. In the next 5 years, we could touch base before that. But, I'm sure that a lot of big positive changes will be happening for you and the team. I appreciate that you were here today and you gave us all this great information about the lacrosse team. And like I said before, I will post everything else in the show notes. So if someone's out there that says, hey, I want to find out more about this lacrosse team, they'll be able to do that with the information. And before we go, I just want to give one little side appreciation note to the Hungarian men's national lacrosse team. If it wasn't for your team, believe it or not, I wouldn't be doing this podcast. Everybody that's listened to this podcast has heard me mention that my son plays on the team, but that's not what this episode was about. But because of that, that was that snowball of like, oh, you should get your passport. Oh, really? That's a thing? Cool. Let's do that. And it kind of just, oh, you want to take Hungarian lessons? Yeah, let's do that. So who knew that whenever it was 5 years ago or so, when he tried out and joined the team, that I would be here. So thanks to you and the Hungarian men's national lacrosse team, everybody else is listening to me with this podcast now. So I appreciate that. So thanks so much for the inspiration. You just never know where your life is going to take you. So, reach out to the Hungarian lacrosse team. You never know. You might become a national team member. Thanks so much, George. I really appreciate all of the information that you put out there and being on the podcast. I feel like it's come full circle now that you were on my podcast. And I look forward to coming out and see you guys play soon. Thanks so much.
Awesome.
George.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Hungarian Heritage Podcast with George Rohonczcy from the Hungarian men's national lacrosse team. If you or someone you know has Hungarian heritage and plays lacrosse, and you think they would like more information about trying out for the team, then don't forget to check the show notes below so you can contact George. As always, thanks so much for listening, and keep following along so we can continue expanding this community we are building. Thanks to my audio editor, Tori Irvin, for working her audio magic on this episode. Our theme music is Hungarian Dance by Pony Music, used with a special license from Envato Market. Thanks again for listening, and don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you get your podcasts so we can continue to connect our modern lives with our Hungarian heritage. Until next time, goodbye everyone. Sziasztok mindenkinek!